you very much, and I hope it's okay if I speak English, because if I talk Russian then you won't understand anything. So yeah, I'm proud to be here, and I hope I can give you some information on a very interesting project which we are pushing forward now. We are building decentralized insurance on a blockchain, and decentralized insurance means not only a part of the process, but end-to-end, the whole insurance on the blockchain. And so we are a bit different from other companies which are mostly bringing some process efficiency into insurance processes, mostly internal, mostly on private chains. We are targeting a public Ethereum blockchain, and we want to establish the first decentralized insurance on the blockchain. I don't know how many of you have been here, I think 1 or 2 weeks ago, when my co-founder Stefan was already here, and he talked about also about Etherisc and decentralized insurance, but not so much on the technical aspects, but more on the business aspects. Maybe you can give me a sign who has been there. So nobody has been, okay, so nobody has been there. Okay, then maybe I should give a little introduction on the business model of Etherisc and our current prototype. We have a live prototype which is running on the Robson testnet. You all can use this prototype, and you can, what I will present here on slides, we can test real life on the Robson testnet if you like. If you have an account on Ethereum, then you can just test it. The other part of my talk will be more technical oriented. I hope I meet the expectations of the audience here. How many developers are sitting here? Maybe give me a sign. Okay, not so many. Okay, then maybe I switch to other set of slides afterwards to address the other part of the audience. And please interrupt me if there is anything which is don't understand, or ask questions as you like. It should be a dialogue and not so much just a one direction talk. So what is Etherisc? Etherisc is flight delay. This is our first product. We are insuring passengers against the delay of a flight. How does it work? If you are planning a journey with a plane, then you can call our application. This is a website. You can just open it if you like, fdd.etherisc.com, and yet then you come to this application form. Here you can select airport, origin airport and a destination airport. Then you can select the date of a flight. It must be at least 24 hours in the future, because otherwise you already know that you are delayed. And then you can select the flight. We just make a query. This is a standard Google API which we ask the available flights between origin and destination on the selected day, and you can select your flight. And the next step is that you can apply for a policy. Here in this table you see the probability of the delay for this specific flight. For example, here we have a BA 178 on the 27th of October last year. This is a historical flight, and the probability of a delay of between 15 and 29 minutes is 3.23%. So basically, one of every 30 flights is delayed, and then we calculate the payout. If you pay 5 Ether, then in case of a delay of 15 minutes, then you get a payout of 37 Ether. So you get a factor of 7 from the premium which you pay, is the payout which you get in case of a delay. If the delay is more, 30 to 44 minutes, then the probability is 0, because historically there have not been any delays between 30 and 44 minutes. but there have been larger delays, 44 minutes plus. The probability is also 3%, but because the delay is larger, we give you a higher payout. For example, in this case, you get a payout of 112 ether for a premium of 5 ether, so this is a factor of 20, which is your payout in case of a delay. There have not been any cancelled and diverted flights, but in case your flight would be cancelled, then you would get a payout of 150 ether, so a factor of 30 for a premium of 5 ether. And then you can decide what you want to pay this premium. You can also select a smaller premium, for example 1 ether or half an ether, and then you press the apply button. And after you press the apply button, we generate a transaction on the Ethereum blockchain, and you can then sign the transaction with a browser extension. There is a browser extension with an integrated Ethereum wallet, which is called MetaMask. Some of you may know this. There you have your basically some money in this wallet, and you can sign this transaction and this amount of money with this wallet, and click on accept, and then the transaction is published on the blockchain and mined, and then you can watch this transaction on the blockchain. After some seconds it's mined, and then the policy, the insurance policy, is recorded on the blockchain. And that's it. That's the last step. And everything which is after that is autonomous and automatically. So what happens? At this moment, after you press the accept button, the transaction is mined, and after the transaction is mined, the smart contract which is behind this calls a so-called oracle, which is a trusted data source, and again checks the flight data. Because it could be possible that you modified the data or made an illegal transaction. So the contract checks itself, is the data valid, and if it is valid, then the contract underwrites the policy. So the policy gets accepted from the smart contract. And then the next step is also automatic. The smart contract schedules a second call for the time of the landing of the plane. So after landing, the smart contract automatically checks, is the plane landed in time, and if not, then it calls again and again and again until the plane is landed, and then the delay is determined. And we have two outcomes. The plane is punctual, then nothing happens and the policy just expires, or the plane is delayed, then you get automatically your payout. So you don't have to claim anything. The contract itself pays out automatically depending on the delay of the flight. So everything is automatic, everything is autonomous, and nobody can interfere, and nobody can cancel the policy, and nobody can stop this process. So this is a big difference to a normal insurance. Normal insurance works. You make a policy, the insurance company underwrites, and then you have a claim, then you have to claim it, you have to write some papers and sign it, and then you go to the insurance, and then the insurance says, no, there is a paragraph in our terms and conditions, and it says we are not obliged to pay because there is a certain fine print, and it says we are not obliged to pay. So at that moment, you begin to discuss with the insurance company and say, well, I think I have the right to get the payout, and the insurance company, no, you don't have the right, and then there is a conflict. Yeah? Here there can never be a conflict because the contract itself checks the event and makes the payout automatically. So.
I have actually various questions, but let's start from how do you call Oracle SQL database from a Ethereum virtual machine? Is it allowed? Or you have a middleware which actually checks on smart code on Ethereum blockchain, and it calls SQL database.
Okay, it works this way. At that moment, when you press the accept button, then the transaction is mined, and the transaction calls a function of our smart contract. And this function then calls automatically the Oracle contract from our partner. Yeah, there is a separate contract, a so-called Oracle contract, and it is automatically called.
Database Oracle contract.
Yes, we call it an Oracle contract. The Oracle contract triggers an event at our partner. We have a partner company which is Oracleize, which is specialized on blockchain oracles. And Oracleize then in turn makes normal HTTP call to our data provider. We have a data provider. I will soon have a picture of this, and then the data provider gives the data, and then the data is processed, and our partner Oracleize guarantees and proves that they have called the data at a certain point of time, and they document the whole process. So everything is transparent, and you can validate all the calls which are happening on the internet to the data provider, and so everything is without trust. So, and then we send, together with this transaction, we also send a task to Oracleize for the time of the landing. So Oracleize, at the time of the landing, Oracleize will call our contract and deliver the data of the flight status, and then our contract calculates is there a delay or not, and then it continues until we have a decision. And so we don't do anything. This thing is completely autonomous. And for us, the last point is when the customer presses the accept button.
Yeah, but am I correct that this model will be fully decentralized only if all air companies will put their data about flight blockchain as well? Because now you have something not that translates. I mean, you put information about that flight is cancelled.
Yeah,
it's not.
You're right.
Not in blockchain.
We ask only one oracle. So you can argue this is not decentralized because you are asking only one oracle, and you should ask 10 or 15 oracles, or arbitrarily ask one data source. Yeah? And this is, you can say this is a centralized data source. This is right, but I think this is the first step in this direction. We have parts which are decentralized and parts which are still centralized, and things will develop. And maybe in 2 years we have, for example, a prediction market for flights, and then it would be completely decentralized. We would have a decentralized oracle based, for example, on a prediction market. Okay. But we are not so far because there is no prediction market which delivers flight data, so we have no choice.
Okay. And on the last question,
yeah.
So, and if the owner of flight ticket, so yeah. you don't check it. Yes. So it means that you also need somehow to put validation that I'm an owner of flight ticket.
Yes.
In other words, like another lottery. So I can just set a bet and win money. So it's
yes.
not
You're right.
It's like a lottery.
Yeah. It's a lottery. It's a bet, and not an insurance in this prototype. But we have a second prototype which is not live yet, which makes the check of the ticket data. But we cannot put it live because the API for checking ticket data is not a public API, so we can't put this on a public blockchain. But basically, you're right. As long as we don't check the ticket data, it's simply a gambling contract. Yeah? And but as soon as we add the check for the ticket data, then it's a real insurance, because then we can check if there is a person which has a ticket and has a real interest to insure against the delay. Okay. So this is the principle. We have seen this side. We have this web front end. We have this wallet, and this wallet interacts with our smart contract. And smart contract is, as always, I think you know it. If there is anybody who does not know how a smart contract on Ethereum works, then please give me a sign and I can explain this also. Smart contract is basically a piece of code which is running on the Ethereum blockchain and has also data. So this code can act on this data like conventional software program which acts on data, on a database. The difference to a normal program is that this code is not executed on one computer, but on 7,000 nodes which are distributed all over the world, and every node checks the execution of the code and checks the transformation of the data, and only if there is a consensus on the outcome of the code, then this code, the execution of the code is documented and recorded on the blockchain. So this is a decentralized execution of code. The code is executed on every node which is participant of the network, and it is impossible to modify the code or the execution, because if I would modify the code, then the other nodes wouldn't accept the execution of the contract. So this is what some people call code is law, because basically on the blockchain, the Ethereum blockchain, this code, once deployed, it is immutable. You can't change it again. You can deploy another version, yeah, but then you have a new piece of software, a new contract, a new address, and you can never change the old code. But the data can change. Of course, we have, for example, a policy here, and the policy has certain states, and the first state is applied, the second state is underwritten, the next state is claimed, then you have your state expired or paid out. So the data can change, but always we record all modifications of the data on the blockchain. So every modification of the data is traceable and is auditable, so you can always reconstruct all changes in the data. Everything is transparent, and you can validate it if you like. So we record all the policies here in the data, and that's not all. Now we have to make some connection to the external world. The blockchain is completely closed to the external world, so you can ask the question, how come flight data on the blockchain? And to connect the external world with the blockchain, we need a so-called oracle. An oracle is a simple smart contract which puts data from the external world on the blockchain in a reproducible and provable way. And our partner Oracleize provides such an oracle. We send a request to Oracleize, and the request says, please check a certain URL. It's an API from our data provider, and record the result on the blockchain. And the URL is an API call, and so we send this request to Oracleize. Oracleize calls the API. The API gives a result, and this interaction is over HTTPS. So it's encrypted, and Oracleize uses a certain feature of SSL encryption to prove that they have made this call at a certain time, and they record not only the result of this call, but they record also the proof of the call on the blockchain. So also you can verify that they have called the data provider at a certain moment in the time, and so it's not possible to manipulate the data, and FlightStats cannot deny that they have delivered the data at a certain time with a certain content. Of course, FlightStats can make errors when they get the data from the airlines, but this is out of our reach. If FlightStats gets wrong data from the airlines, then we have no chance. But they have very good data quality, so we rely on this. And, basically, we tell our customers, you have to believe that FlightStats does a good job and that they get the right data, and the rest is provable. The whole chain here from FlightStats over Oracleize to the smart contract is provable, and you can check that neither Oracleize nor FlightStats have altered the data on the way to the smart contract. So this is also a feature of blockchain that you can record data and events from the external world on a blockchain in a provable way.
But first of all, if the user wants to make a transaction, he should have Ethereum money, right?
Yeah.
First of all. And how user can make this transaction if he comes to system first time?
Okay, that's a good question. There are still very few people who own Ether or who own Bitcoin, so what can we do? Most people have euros, rubles, dollars, and what can we do? Basically, we do the same with the Oracle. We have a bank account, and people pay via credit card or PayPal. They pay a certain amount to our bank account. And there is a second Oracle which checks always the bank account. And always, if there is incoming money on the bank account, it triggers a transaction on the blockchain. Hello, there is some money arrived, and there is a certain customer ID connected with the money. And then we trigger the transaction, and then we know we have some money on our bank account. And in case of a delay, same the other way around. We trigger a transaction, there is a delay, and we have a service which triggers a payout from our bank account. So we can do this without cryptocurrency via a so-called fiat bridge. Fiat is a term for normal money, on a classical bank account. And fiat bridge is nothing else than Oracle, which watches a bank account and which triggers payouts from this bank account to destination, to recipient. And so we can connect a normal bank account with a blockchain via fiat bridge, which is basically a specialized Oracle. And so we can interact with normal people, normal money, and we don't need cryptocurrency or crypto wallets. But here for our prototype, it's the most simple thing to do it with a crypto wallet. And if you install, for example, MetaMask, then MetaMask will give you one test Ether, so you can directly try our application and work with the test Ether, which you get automatically.
Is this kind of a way to transfer real money, so fiat, into Ethereum without any changes already?
But if you use fiat money, then the blockchain is only a ledger, only a bookkeeping for a bank account. And we don't move money with the blockchain, but in a certain way, we still move money because we can, by a certain service, we can trigger a payment from our bank account to a customer, and we can also record an incoming payment from a customer on the blockchain via an Oracle. So this is a loosely coupled system, but of course it only works as long as the Oracle works. Yeah. Okay.
If the user uses fiat currency for entering into the contract, will be paid in fiat once the case happens?
Yes.
So you have vice versa in
yes,
the other way.
exactly. And so I think this leads too far. We in our implementation, we generate a so-called token on the blockchain which represents fiat money, and then we pay with this token. And so we are very flexible. We can use cryptocurrency, we can use crypto tokens, we can use specialized tokens which represent fiat money. We can do everything, and it's the same smart contract. The same smart contract can work with fiat currency, can work with crypto tokens, and can work with cryptocurrency. So it's very flexible and very easily to interchange. Okay, so is this basically clear, or are there still questions to the basic working of our smart contract? Okay, then I go on. I now dive a little bit in the technical details, just to give you a feeling what are the problems of smart contract developer. We developed this contract in the last year in August, and it was one of the first and more complex smart contracts then. the blockchain costs money because we store the code on the blockchain, and to store data on the blockchain costs money. Because all these 7,000 nodes, they have to store this data, and of course they have energy, they have to pay for their energy, and so the Ethereum blockchain calculates fees for every transaction and also for the deployment of software. And there is a limit, the upper limit for deploying of contract which is measured in a certain unit, which is called gas. Gas is a little, it comes from gas from a car, which you need to run a car, you need gas, yeah. And to run a smart contract, you also need gas. And to deploy a smart contract, you also need gas. And at that time, we needed 4 million gas to deploy our smart contract. And we were closely to the limit, which was 4.7 million gas. So we just at the limit, and smart contract could not be much more complex. Otherwise, we would not be able to deploy it. But it worked. We could deploy it. It was at the limit of complexity, but it worked. And then in September, there were attacks on the Ethereum blockchain. There were some hackers who made some bad transactions on the blockchain, and the blockchain slowed down. And the core developers of the Ethereum blockchain decided to lower the gas limit, so the blockchain was still functional. So the block gas limit was lowered from 4.7 million to 1 million, which so we were not able to deploy a new version of our contract because our contract needed 4.6 million gas, so we had to do something. And our contract then was only one piece of code, 700 lines of code, one contract, and that's it. And it needed 4.6 million gas, and we were not able to deploy a new version of the contract because of the low gas limit. What we did, we made from one contract, we made 7 contracts. You see, every box here is now a separate contract. And every contract now has only 1 million gas, so we can deploy it on the blockchain even with a very low gas limit. So the solution for deploying a very complex contract is to make little pieces of the code and deploy all these pieces separately. But then we have to interact between contracts, and this is a nice feature of Ethereum smart contracts. Smart contracts can call each other, and so you can divide a big complex software system in small modules, and the modules call each other, transfer data under each other, and even control the access on the data. And so we were able to divide the big contract in many small parts, and they were deployed separately, and all these parts were below 1 million gas, and so we could deploy the contract again, even in a situation where the gas limit was only 1 million gas.
Yes, I'm wondering about this splitting of contracts, one contract, many contracts. So as I understand, now when you have split your contract, every read to data from another contract costs gas as well. So when it's one contract, you don't need to pay a gas when you read a data. But when data is in another contract, you need to pay gas to read something from this another contract, right?
Not totally. Basically, it's so. For every step in the execution of a program, you pay a little amount of gas. For example, if you add 2 numbers, then you pay, for example, 20 gas. If you store data on a blockchain, then you pay 200 gas. And for every instruction, you have a certain fee. And some instructions are more expensive and some instructions are cheaper. So basically, if you divide software in parts, and if you don't change the logic, and so you don't change so much the number of steps you need for execution, then you pay the same basically the same amount for execution of the transaction because you have the same business logic. Yeah? And the calls from one contract to another, they are not so expensive, so it does not make a difference in the execution costs. But the deployment costs of a small part are much lower than the deployment costs.
But there is some overhead, right? There is some overhead, right? Some overhead compared to having everything in one contract, right?
But the data is, for example, all the data is here in one contract concentrated. Yeah? We have one database, and all the other contracts don't store data. Yeah? So if this contract here needs some data, it requests data from the database and reads from the database. And this costs the same as if the data was here in the contract. There's no difference from the cost. But the interesting fact is I can now deploy a new version of this here without altering the database. So I can hear all the policies, all the data, and I can exchange new policy, the contract, if I like. And then the new version accesses the same data here in this because the data is still in the same contract. And so we make our smart contract, which is immutable, we make it updatable, which is a nice feature. And you can update a smart contract, which is basically immutable, by this trick. And so every data is in the database, and then we can exchange this smart contract. To do so, the contracts have to know each other. They have to know, every contract has an address, and for example, the underwrite contract has to know the new policy contract because he has to decide if who is permitted to call some functions. So the underwrite contract needs to know who is new policy. And to do so, we have a so-called contract registry, which is basically a table with contract IDs, with the name of the contract and the address of the contract. And so, in the deployment process, all these contracts are registered in this controller contract. The controller contract knows who is who, and if new policy wants to call the payout contract, then he first asks here the controller, where is the payout contract, and then the policy can call the payout contract. And it's the same like a DNS in the internet. Yeah, you have google.com, and then you ask a name server, and the name server says, okay, google.com is a certain IP address. And the same logic is here. You have a name of a contract, and then you ask the controller, where is the address of this contract? The controller answers with the address, and then you can call the respective contract. So it's a very simple method and very nice features. Now we can exchange parts of a contract without altering the database. Okay, so for the technically interested, I think I skip this. This is the process of deployment and how they get to know. If somebody likes to know the details, I'm here after the talk, and we can talk about this. But now I want to put your attention on another thing, also a bit technically, but still very interesting, because this is a very important feature of every blockchain. Blockchain works in a way that, of course, blockchain, there are blocks and they are chained, and so every minute or so, or on the Ethereum blockchain, every 15 seconds a new block is generated, and blocks are concatenated via block hash, and so after some time a block cannot be altered. But you need some blocks. For example, on the Ethereum blockchain, we assume a block is final if there are 6 blocks after it. If there are only 1 block ahead, then it can happen that a block is invalidated because other miners say they have a so-called longer chain, and the longer chain always wins. And so it can happen that there are 2 blocks parallel, which are both containing the same transaction, and only one of these blocks will survive. And the other one becomes a so-called uncle, an orphan block, which is invalidated. And now they can this has some consequences for smart contracts. For example, we have a transaction like our flight delay transaction. Now we generate a raw transaction with the parameters and the data, then we sign the transaction with our wallet, and then we publish it. Then the transaction propagates on the network. It takes about 2 seconds, and then all the 7,000 nodes know this transaction and record this transaction. But then first it comes in an intermediary database, which contains all the pending transactions, and then all the miners can decide which transaction they want to process. And no miner is obliged to do so, but they are incentivized because the processing of a transaction gives you some fees and you earn money by processing transactions. So you have an economical interest to process transactions, but if you don't like, you don't have to. There are big pools of miners which don't process transactions because they say we don't like. So nobody is obliged. So all these transactions in the transaction pool are selected by the miners, and some like and some like not. And then they bundle maybe 10 transactions to a new block, try to mine the block, and then an interesting thing can happen. In this moment, this is maybe 2 or 4 seconds. In this time, all participants of the blockchain see the transaction. So it's no longer a secret. Everybody can see there is a transaction for a flight delay policy. And somebody can say, oh, that's interesting. I make a transaction which is in contrary to this transaction. For example, if you think of a gambling transaction, you make a bet, yeah? And at the moment when you publish your bet, everybody sees your bet and can bet against it. So this is a problem, for example, in betting contracts, not so much in our case. But in betting contracts, you have a period of time where everybody sees your transactions. The transaction is still not mined, and everybody means to stop this. And then finally, the block is mined, and at that moment, all the events in the transaction are triggered. So everybody sees now the transaction is mined, and for example, the policy has been applied for. But we are still not final. It can still happen that the block gets orphaned and gets an uncle. So in this case, after the events have been triggered, and everybody thinks there is a new policy and there is a new, there has been some activity. After this, it can happen that the block gets invalidated, and then all the transactions go back. And again, the same game. Collecting transactions, selecting transactions, other can interfere, mining of the block, again, new events are triggered. So it can happen that the same transaction and the same transaction here generates 2 times different events. One event says it's raining, and the other event says the sun is shining. And the same transaction, 2 times different events, and so the concurrency of the blockchain has some very interesting aspects, and it's not so simple to cope with this phenomenon. And only after you have 6 blocks after the transaction, then you can assume that it's final and that it can never be changed and that you can rely on this data. A famous example, we have a so-called token, REC20 token. This is a standard token on the Ethereum blockchain, and a standard token is characterized by basically 3 functions. The token is a cryptographic asset, and this asset can be transferred. And to transfer the token, you have a so-called transfer function, and the transfer function can be called from the owner of the token, and he can transfer it to another address. So the first function here can be called by the owner, and you can transfer a certain amount of tokens to another address. Very simple, very easy. And now there are some situations where you don't want to transfer it yourself, but you want to authorize another person to transfer tokens in your behalf. And there is another function. You can approve another person to transfer tokens, and then the so-called the authorized person can then call transfer from and can transfer the tokens on your behalf. And now I have an example. Alice has 100 X tokens, and Alice approves Bob with the address OXB to transfer 20 X tokens to any destination. And so she calls approve Bob 20 tokens. And some days later she changes her mind and she says, okay, Bob is no longer so friendly to me, I change this from 20 to 10. He may only transfer 10 tokens. And she calls approved Bob 10 tokens. Because she thinks after she calls approve Bob for 10 tokens, Bob can only transfer 10 tokens. But what happens really, she thinks she called approve 10 and Bob can only transfer 10 tokens. But really what happened really, Bob sees Alice's transaction, the same logic, yeah? Alice publishes the transaction, everybody can see it, Bob sees it, and very quickly he publishes another transaction and he quickly transfers the 20 tokens. Because it's still on the blockchain, the Alice transaction is not mined, and he quickly interferes and transfers 20 tokens. After this, Alice's transaction is mined. Now he has again 10 tokens to transfer, and then he makes a third call and he transfers the rest of the 10 tokens. So basically, he transfers 30 tokens, but Alice intended only to approve him for 10 tokens. So this is also an example that blockchain logic is not so easy to program, and it's not so easy to make it foolproof and secure. And so this is what you have to obey. And so it shows that the programming of a smart contract is much more complicated. And I say, if you're a blockchain programmer, you have a big poster in your office which says, be paranoid. Yeah, you have to think on everything, and you always have to think the worst case. And this shows that there are situations where things happen which you don't expect. So this was now very technical. I hope I didn't annoy you too much, and of course I'm far beyond my time.